Hello and welcome. Welcome to this short video on critical reflection. Whether this is the first time you're being introduced to critical reflection or seeing this video, or if you're coming back to it for a refresher, hopefully this will be useful and hopefully it'll help you understand why critical reflection is so important to our practice as engineers. So our learning objectives for this session are to be able to describe critical reflection and identify some examples, to explain why critical reflection is important, and finally, to appreciate that critical reflection is in fact a developed skill. You shouldn't know how to do this already. We're working to help you get better at this. So we're going to go a little bit meta through this video. We're going to use the same framework headings that you'll be using to critically reflect. I'm going to use these headings to explain what critical reflection is. So these headings or these criteria, we'll call them, are what, so what, and now what. So let's start off with what is critical reflection? So quite simply, critical reflection is a method to help you learn from experience. We often make this mistake that if we have some experience, we learn from it. In fact, that's not true. We have to reflect on our experience in order to learn from it. We can reflect on both positive and negative experiences. You can learn from things that went well, and you can learn from mistakes. A common mistake is that critical reflection is not just replaying details. This is superficial. This is storytelling. While storytelling can be useful for other things, storytelling is not critically reflecting. Oftentimes, there are details that are important to the story that aren't actually important to what you've learned. So we're looking here to pare down any type of storytelling and just dig into what's important. So critical reflection is a core component of the learning process. There's a really well-known framework developed by Kolb that's this theory of experiential learning. It has 4 components to it that looks at how learning happens. And we won't get into all of these components, but one of the key components is this reflective observation. So this has been around for a long time, that reflection is key to learning. That's really the only thing you need to take home from that. Oftentimes we think of critical reflection and we don't know what it is, but all of you have done critical reflection in the past. Some familiar forms are, of course, journaling, self-evaluations, if you've had group projects and you debrief afterwards, planning and strategizing for different actions, as well as any type of coaching and mentoring. So this may have been part of a sports team, or if you were in dance or some kind of play or anything like that, or even beyond that, where coaching and mentoring takes place. So what? So why is critical reflection so important? It develops self-directed learning skills. Now, this is really important considering the rate of rapid technological advancement, especially for engineers. Now, this is one of my favorite graphics to explain critical reflection. As you're here at university doing your undergrad, you have this structured learning provided to you. In fact, this is only a short window of your entire career, and the rest of your career, you're going to be responsible for learning on your own. So as far as I'm concerned, one of the most important things you can do while you're at university is actually learn how to learn. So when the structure is removed and you're out in the real world in your career, you can continue to learn and continue to advance, especially because we don't know what the future will hold 10, 20, 30 years from now. So why else is critical reflection important? It develops these higher order thinking skills. So this is getting into a little bit of pedagogy background and theory here, but just bear with me for a second. So Bloom's taxonomy is this way that we kind of categorize how deep learning is, or how higher order these skills are. And so the most basic things are things like remembering. Can you remember facts? Can you understand how things work? And we increase in complexity to these higher order thinking skills, such as analyzing, evaluating, or creating or generating new knowledge. This is where critical reflection lives. And because it's these higher order complex thinking skills, it's often a lot harder than we think it is. So it's also important, we've got self-directed learning, we've got higher order thinking. These are skills that are going to help you right now succeed at university. It'll help you learn from mistakes you've made on midterms and do better on group projects. these are also the skills that employers want. They want students who can do these types of things. So now I've talked a little bit about what critical reflection is and why it's important. So then now what? How are we going to use critical reflection? So first of all, we're going to use a structured frame. This is a lot to look at right now. Don't worry about this. There'll be some follow-up videos that are going to unpack this framework in more detail. What you should know is that this framework has flexibility. There's multiple criteria that fall within under these what, so what, and now what headings. So there's a little bit of flexibility as to how you approach it. All of these prompts have been mapped to that Bloom's taxonomy that I mentioned before. So that's all embedded in this framework. So as you're working on critical reflection, you might be wondering, how can I improve? How can I get better at this? A few ways to do that. First of all, writing and revising. All of the critical reflections we're doing will be written critical reflections. And so coming back to these and revising these is a great way to improve. Practice, practice, practice. You've heard this before. This won't come as a surprise. Critical reflection is like any other skill. If you've learned how to play a musical instrument, if you've played video games, if you're into working out or training, all of these things require practice. Finally, feedback or peer feedback. A great way to learn critical reflection is to provide feedback to one of your peers, one of your friends. Read their reflection, give them some feedback. You'll learn from their reflection process as well as your own reflection. And if you get feedback on your reflection, you'll get some additional insight. So this really works in two ways. The feedback helps someone else, and it also helps you in giving feedback. So just to quickly review our learning outcomes for this session, hopefully by now you can describe critical reflection and identify some common examples. Hopefully you can explain why critical reflection is important. And finally, appreciate that reflection is a developed skill. It'll get better over time with practice, the more you use it. I think it's worth mentioning some of these sources. I won't get into a whole lot of detail here, but where this framework comes from is from some work by Terry Borton in the 70s. That's where the what, so what, now what framework comes from. And I've simply amalgamated it with a colleague's framework from McMaster that gets into the more rigorous criteria to help you reflect and be objective rather than subjective or superficial that we often associate with critical reflection. So to move forward, the next steps now will be to actually use the framework. If I can figure it out, I'm going to link to 2 other videos that are going to impact the what or unpack what and so what from the framework. So thanks for watching. Good luck on your journey. Good luck on attempting these criteria. And again, feel free to come back to this video if you need a refresher as to why we need to learn these skills.